It was a calm day in the hip-hop world, or at least it seemed that way until whispers started circulating from behind the scenes. Something was stirring, something connected to one of the most powerful names in rap, J. Prince. But this time, it wasn't just about J. Prince's grip on the South or his behind-the-curtain influence. This time, it was personal. It involved 50 Cent, and the man standing up wasn't who you'd expect. It wasn't a label exec or an industry insider or some suit in an office building. It was Tony Yayo, 50 Cent's longtime friend, his street-certified right-hand man from the early G-Unit days. Yayo, known more for his loyalty than for chasing headlines, apparently had enough. He wasn't just defending 50 Cent, he was calling out one of the most feared and respected names in hip-hop. And he was doing it loudly. But this didn't come out of nowhere. The tension between 50 Cent and J. Prince had been bubbling for a while. There were rumors about business deals gone sour, street beefs resurfacing, and words exchanged online. At one point, J. Prince warned 50 Cent publicly, implying that he was moving in ways that invited problems. 50, being who he is, didn't back down. He threw jabs back, sometimes with memes, sometimes with cryptic captions, and sometimes with full-on Instagram rants. The world watched, entertained but cautious, because when two titans like this start throwing shots, the fallout can get ugly fast. Now J. Prince isn't your average rap mogul. He's not someone who just makes music and disappears. He's been the puppet master of Southern hip-hop for decades. As the founder of Rap-A-Lot Records, he helped shape the careers of legends like Scarface and the Ghetto Boys. But his real power has always been behind the curtain. He's known as the guy who can pick up a phone and make a problem disappear or make one appear. The streets respect him. The industry fears him. Even law enforcement has kept a close eye on his movements. So when J. Prince speaks, people usually listen. That's why it shocked so many when Tony Yayo decided to confront him. To understand how this confrontation came to be, you gotta rewind the story back a couple of decades. Tony Yayo and 50 Cent came up in the trenches together. Before the platinum records, the vitamin water deals, and the social media jabs, they were two Queens hustlers grinding in the streets. Their bond wasn't industry deep, it was life deep. When 50 got shot 9 times, Yayo was there. When Yayo got locked up, 50 held him down. When G-Unit exploded onto the scene, their loyalty was part of the brand. So when someone starts throwing shade at 50 Cent, especially someone with as much weight as J. Prince, Yayo wasn't about to stay quiet. People in the industry were stunned. Not just because of what he said, but because of who he said it to. J. Prince wasn't someone you casually name-dropped in a rant. He was someone you approached with caution, with diplomacy. But Yayo had no filter. He questioned J. Prince's motives. He called out the so-called OG politics that seemed more about manipulation than mentorship. He accused people in power of trying to rewrite history and use fear to control narratives. And perhaps most importantly, he let everyone know that G-Unit wasn't broken. That despite the media trying to paint 50 Cent as isolated, he still had soldiers who were ready to fight beside him. Yayo's tone was raw, emotional, and unapologetically real. He remembered everyone who he was. Someone who had seen it all, from the crack era in South Jamaica Queens to the bright lights of international tours. He wasn't scared of reputation. He wasn't intimidated by legacy. He had survived too much to be silenced now. And his message was clear. He was riding for 50 until the wheels fell off, no matter who came knocking. And Tony Yayo? He was watching too. He kept his mouth shut for a while, staying in the shadows like he always had. But as the tension escalated and more people started chiming in, he must have felt that his silence was no longer an option. 50 had always gone to war for him. Maybe now it was time to return the favor. So he spoke up. Not on a track, not in a diss song, but in a candid, unfiltered interview that had the industry buzzing. Yayo didn't thin words. He made it clear that if J. Prince had an issue with 50 Cent, it wasn't going to be one-sided. As the weeks passed, the confrontation became legend. It was one of those rare moments where the veil lifted, and we saw the raw mechanics of power, loyalty, and legacy in hip-hop. Yayo wasn't trying to win a battle. He was making a statement that echoed through studios, boardrooms, and street corners alike. That no matter how big the game gets, there are still rules. There are still lines you don't cross. And if you come for the king, you better be ready for his soldiers. In the aftermath, something strange happened. People started revisiting Yayo's old interviews, digging through his discography, looking for signs of this fierce loyalty. They found that he had always been consistent, that while he might not have had the most hits, He had something more valuable: integrity. And in an era where betrayal sells records and fake drama gets clicks, Yayo's stand was refreshing. It reminded fans of what hip-hop used to be about: realness, brotherhood, codes that don't change with fame. Now here's where the real tension lies. Because when J. Prince gets publicly called out, he doesn't usually respond right away. He lets the silence build. He lets the fear fester. But this time, the silence said a lot. He didn't issue a direct response to Yayo, at least not publicly. But he did post a few messages on social media, quotes about respect, about loyalty, about keeping things behind closed doors. And depending on how you read between the lines, it felt like a warning. The kind of warning that doesn't need to be loud to be deadly. Meanwhile, 50 Cent was watching all this unfold. And though he never explicitly addressed the situation, he did what he always did. He posted memes. One in particular stood out. It showed a chessboard with all the pawns cleared out, and only the king standing tall. The caption: "Play your position." Fans took it as a subtle nod to Yayo's loyalty, and a reminder that 50 always has moves being made behind the scenes. But here's where things get even deeper. This wasn't just about rap. This was about real-life codes: loyalty, respect, street honor. Yayo made it clear that in his world, you don't let anyone threaten your people. Especially not someone you came up with. Especially not someone who put you on. He wasn't chasing clout. He wasn't promoting an album. He was standing on principle. And that resonated with a lot of people. Fans started flooding comment sections, praising Yayo for saying what others were too scared to say. Fellow rappers posted cryptic messages of support. Even old G-Unit affiliates started popping up, backing the idea that the brotherhood wasn't dead. The confrontation with J. Prince may not have ended in violence. No shots were fired. No lawsuits filed. But make no mistake, it was a war. A war of ideologies. A war of reputations. And in that war, Tony Yayo made sure that 50 Cent wasn't standing alone. He didn't just defend his friend. He reminded the world that loyalty still exists in hip-hop. That behind every mogul is someone who's willing to ride, not for money, not for fame, but for principle. So what happens next? That's the question everyone's asking. Will J. Prince respond with more than just cryptic messages? Will this confrontation spark deeper tensions in the industry? Or will it fade into the background as just another chapter in the ever-growing saga of 50 Cent's battles? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: Tony Yayo's voice has now entered the arena. And once you speak truth in an industry built on silence, there's no turning back. You either stand tall or you get swallowed by the machine. And for now, Yayo's standing tall.